Hello, everybody, and welcome back to JC's Writing Advice. I'm JC Bybee, indie author, writer coach, or author mentor, and YouTuber. You can find my books and my writing coaching services at jcbybee.com. Today's video, as I talked about in my last video, is going to be about pacing. So what is pacing and what affects it? That's what we're gonna talk about. So what is pacing? Pacing is the speed at which you tell the story. Are you trying to tell it fast? Are you trying to tell it slow? What are you trying to get your reader to feel as you write? And we're going to talk probably in a different video about pacing and genre. I'm not going to go into genre expectations today. It's a little bit more than I want to cover in a single video. So we're going to go into pacing in general. So what affects pacing in general? Sentence length affects it. The structure and number of sentences. Dialogue and description. And last but not least, the details. So sentence length, that seems pretty self-explanatory. Short sentences feel faster. Just will. Long sentences feels slower to the reader. Go into a bookstore and pick up a fantasy novel, especially Tolkien or Robert Jordan. The sentences in places you can see that are much longer, they're much more detailed. Whereas if you go and pick up a thriller, the sentence length is shorter in general. I'm not talking like 2-3 word sentences. And again, you can vary your pace by varying the length of your sentences. It's not a hard and fast rule that all thrillers have to have like fun with Dick and Jane level sentences. But the number of words you use and how you use them is important to set expectations and to set pace within the story. Structure and number of sentences, talking about word choice, word usage. Choppier sentences as like panic breathing. Somebody who's panicked, who's been running, they're not taking deep, slow, controlled breaths. They're panting because their heart's racing, they're tired, and so they're trying to get as much air in as fast as they can. Whereas when you are sitting at home relaxing on the couch, you're taking smoother, longer breaths, your breathing is slower, your heart's not pumping. So that's how your sentence structure can affect it, is it puts your reader in that frame of mind of moving forward quickly or resting and relaxing. And then paragraph length is another thing to take into consideration. This goes along with the choppy kind of idea with sentences. If you have short little paragraphs, it feels like the action is moving a lot faster than if you have just a big block of text. Your typical 5-sentence paragraph, depending on the length of the sentences, is going to make a scene feel a little bit slower versus maybe a shorter 2 or 3 sentence paragraph, or even a 1 sentence. How you use your line breaks and how you structure your scenes is important. And your editor or your critique group or your writer coach can help you with setting the kind of scenes and setting the kind of pacing that you want. Dialogue versus description. So a dialogue heavy section speeds up the pacing. The more you have people talking, the more it feels like the scene is moving, the faster the scene can feel. Again, this also ties back into the previous section about sentence length and structure. If you are sitting in a lecture and your scene is a lecture hall, you're going to have longer sentences, longer paragraphs. It's still dialogue, but it's not the kind of dialogue that sets up a faster paced scene. Whereas you can have description, and description is used to spread a scene out and slow it down. Talked about with it was a couple episodes on the podcast that I'm part of, Third Person POV. We talked about the scene that I was working on in my book Lost Souls, how a lot of information gets presented to the reader, and it feels like for, I don't know, I think it was 1,500 word section, it felt like there was too much going on for that one brief scene. And one of the suggestions that my co-host gave me is adding in detail and emotion, especially. I have a bad habit on my first drafts. I usually catch it, I will stipulate, on my first drafts of White Room Syndrome is what it's called, where you don't really know where the scene is happening as well as you want the reader to know where the scene is happening. So if I throw in details to help them understand where they are in the city, what's going on around them, the pacing lengthens out, and it doesn't feel like I'm just trying to shove information into my reader's head without giving them a moment to process what's going on. And that goes into our next topic, detail. The detail that you put into your scenes and your books help set the kind of pace that you're looking for. So you don't want to cram in a bunch of detail into a scene that's supposed to be fast-paced. People aren't stopping and admiring a pine tree in the middle of being chased by a mountain lion. At least people that aren't alive anymore, or are still alive, don't do that. Whereas if you want to, go out and enjoy nature, go back to the nature analogy, you're sitting on the top of a mountain and looking out across the valley, the amount of detail that you can see and feel and describe is a lot more. And it will slow the scene down. It will slow the pacing down. You want to make sure that you vary your pacing. You don't want to just be on the gas the whole time. It will make for a very stressful read if you don't give your readers a little bit of a break, a little bit of time to go and step back and go, okay, this is what's going on, this is where they are. And you can get out your bingo cards, because the Wheel of Time in The Eye of the World, the very first book, you get this, and people will disagree with me, feel free to. The first little bit of The Eye of the World is fairly fast-paced. You get the world set up, the problem set up, and then the main characters are on the run. And you get this travel log. And I know people will say, how can a fast-paced travelogue happen? Well, the travelogue is where he controls the pace. Lots of things happen in the two rivers in a very short period of time, relatively speaking. It's a lot of chapters, but very little, or a lot happens, and it's very fast. And then they have this travelogue where they're going from the two rivers to their next destination. And their next destination is, I don't remember how long. It doesn't really matter. It's not relevant. But you get this moment where everybody kind of relaxes, and when they get to the next town, they kind of relax and they lose their sense of urgency. At least some of the characters do. And then everything goes south again, and you have this next section where they're just constantly moving, they're constantly running, they're constantly in danger. And it culminates in the group breaking apart and losing each other. And then we have another group or a section where everybody's trying to get back together. And we get a lot more travel, but the travel has its own ups and downs and its own action beats with each individual group that we encounter. The pacing in The Eye of the World, personally, I think is really well done. The funny thing is I didn't like the second book in The Wheel of Time the first time I read it, but going back now with more experience, it is a different book with different pacing requirements. And each time you sit down to write, you need to make sure you understand how you want your scene to be paced. Is this a fast scene? Is this a slow scene? Where do I want my readers to be on that scale? And it's the reason I picked the picture I picked for this slideshow is this, ups and downs, peaks and valleys. Your book should have peaks and valleys. There should be fast scenes and slow scenes. And again, I'm going to talk about genre expectations next time, or the next time I do one of these videos, because each genre has its own expectations, but there still needs to be ups and downs. And you can control that. You are the one that's responsible for the pacing. And to understand whether or not a scene is well paced or not, you need somebody else to read it. And that way they can say, wow, that was really fast, or man, that kind of dragged. Because you don't want your book to drag. You also don't want it to make them feel like they just ran a sprint. People talk about writing page turners, and that's fine. You want people to enjoy what you're reading, but at the same time, you don't want them to feel like, they're being chased while they're reading it. Well, maybe you do. I don't know. But a fast-paced book is gonna be harder to enjoy, or a book that is paced too fast, too quickly is going to be harder and just as hard to enjoy as a book that is paced too slowly. And the balance is key when it comes to all of these factors we've been talking about. So remember, as you're writing, that in order to pace your book properly, make use of your tools. Make use of description, make use of dialogue, make use of sentence length and sentence structure. The best way sometimes to break up a scene is change your paragraph length, change your sentence length. You're conveying the information you need, but the order in which it's conveyed and how it's conveyed. And maybe it goes from a descriptive to a dialogue, or from a dialogue to a descriptive. These are all tools that you can use when you're writing to make sure that the pace is correct. And, each genre has its expectations. Make sure you understand the expectations of your genre. And make sure you understand how you want to use the things I've been talking about in this video to control the pace of your book, to control the pace of your narrative. That's really all I have on that one. I know it might seem like I was kind of burning through it. My pacing might have needed work. But look at what you've written and then read it to yourself out loud. That's one of the big tools I use when I'm doing my revisions, is I read out loud. And if it feels like the scene's going too fast, too slow, I can adjust. Also, if you can, become part of a critique group, a writer's group. Makes a big difference. Also, and I will say this, even though I don't do it as well as I should, hire an editor. Editors, their job is to help you write the best version of your book that they can. Also, you could hire a writer coach. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy teaching. If you are interested, I will have the links down below to my website. I appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate you listening, giving me a chance to share my knowledge, share my experience. Please like this video if you liked it. Share it with your friends and fellow writers. Leave a comment if there's something you would like me to discuss in a future video. You can also support me on Patreon at patreon.com/jcbybee. You can get deleted scenes and exclusive short stories there. And that basically wraps this one up. Thank you for listening. Thanks for stopping by. And I will see you in the next one.